I'm Richard Moore. This is The Pathfinder, the podcast where we visit with faculty, administrators, policymakers, researchers, really anyone making a difference in the lives of students at community colleges. It's a partnership between the Texas Success Center and the Texas Community College Teachers Association. Today, Wanda Mercer, Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, and David Troutman, Vice Chancellor for Institutional Research and Decision Support at the University of Texas System, join us to talk about the current state of dual credit in Texas and what changes we may be seeing over the next few years. They're just completing an exhaustive study of the subject in the context of the UT system to try to understand the impact dual credit is having on their students, their programs and disciplines, as well as their institutions. They look at quality and academic rigor and cost to student. They ask about the impact dual credit has on student debt. Does it decrease the time it takes to earn a college degree? Does it help reduce social and economic inequalities, or does it make them worse? Is there such a thing as too much dual credit? Are high school freshmen really prepared, academically, socially, psychologically, to take college courses? Their work is part of a broader effort of a task force Wanda Mercer co-chairs that includes university systems, community colleges, and others to make recommendations to the Texas legislature in its next session. It's a lot to get our arms around, so let's get started. Why don't we start? Just tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got into your current role.
I'm David Troutman. I'm an Associate Vice Chancellor for Institutional Research and Decision Support. I've been with the UT family for 10 years now. I've been at UT System for 4.5, and I was at UT Austin for 6 years. So I started, I pursued my PhD in Human Development Family Studies. My goal was to be a researcher, a faculty member. And as I was going through my PhD program, I fell in love with applied research. And so I wanted to go beyond just working in academia, but to work in an applied research area. So I was at a think tank in DC for a few years, and then migrated over to UT, to the UT family, where I was really working in the depths of the registrar's office and student affairs, where I fell in love with the university life and trying to help students. I think student affairs is really geared towards helping students succeed outside the classroom, and so I think that's where I got the bug of passion to help students. And so what I try to do, and what I think about pretty much every day, how do we use data to help support and students succeed at our colleges?
Well, that decision support, Vice Chancellor for Students for Decision Support, I think that's the greatest job title I've ever heard. Because that really is what you do. It's not just, you're not just a data analyst. There's a purpose for it.
Well, and I think
where did that come from?
Well, I think the key with the decision support is working hand in hand with other policy individuals to make the data come to life. Wanda Mercer and I work every other day together. I think she and others in the Office of Academic Affairs at UT System can bring the data to life, really make things actionable. I can create a report and tell you statistically it's different from one another, or this is higher than that, but really what they can do is they can write those into words to make it come to life on campuses.
But your experience came out of the college experience on a campus.
Yes,
I mean, you know that world.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
How does that play out? Do you find yourself when you're working with research getting into a question and you say, I know what this looks like in the registrar's office? Does that inform some of what you're looking at?
I think all life experiences really help you ask better informed questions. I think it's very it's beneficial for you to live or to be on a campus to really get the feel for students and what they need. I had the opportunity to work several years with students themselves, and it was eye-opening of all the different experiences, the ups and downs of a semester, and really trying to use these data to help protect them. It's really, I view data as sort of, data and working with policy people as a safety net, and that you could catch them before they fall.
gives you a basis for what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Wanda, you've been working in the UT system for a while in the area of student success. So
Yes. I'm Associate Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs. My name is Wanda Mercer, and I'm pushing 7 years with the UT system. And I came from campuses. I've spent 35 years before I got here, I spent on university campuses. I did my undergraduate degree at Sam Houston State. So I'm a loyal Bearcat there.
All right.
And then I spent 16 years at U of H Clear Lake in its early years, a campus that in its infancy, well, in much of its adolescence, was serving community colleges. That's what we did. We got students from community colleges and helped them complete. It only recently became a 4-year institution. And then I spent almost 20 years at Tarleton State as a vice president. So I come really grounded from from campuses. And that's unusual. David and I both are unusual. There are a lot of people here at the system who have not spent time on campuses. I don't know how you do this work if you haven't spent time working with students, either teaching or in support systems or in programming. I mean, I just think we're better because of that. I want to add one other thing because I think it's important. I came from a have-not family, and so it was people at Sam Houston that helped this young girl who didn't even know what a semester credit hour was.
Mm-hmm.
Neither of my parents went to school. I was first generation. But who helped me all along the way. I had some ability, but I had no financial resources. I had little knowledge of it. And there are any number of times that people helped me, and I wouldn't be successful at all without that help, especially as an undergraduate, but also in encouraging me to pursue higher degrees. So I am mindful of that every day, that there are a lot of people who come to our campuses and we assume they know, and the fact is they don't.
Mm-hmm.
And it really helped to inform my work as a vice president, and certainly even helps me here as I think about how we can help students to be successful when you're reminded that many of them don't have the opportunities or the finances or even the knowledge to think about some of the things that other students do.
And yeah, even knowing what questions to ask.
Yeah,
They show up on
exactly.
campus and they feel like a fish out of water.
Right.
And to know what that feels like gives you much more textured,
Absolutely.
nuanced understanding of that experience and lets you ask different questions because you know what the world looks like through
And you
there.
just cannot assume they know. And certainly I believe all of that informed my career decisions in terms of seeing people doing work with university students that was meaningful, that helped them move these young adults along. I've had a wonderful career working with young adults and watching them grow where they aren't even housebroken when they get here. And that was always my term.
Right.
I guess that's not the best term. I'm sorry. But, they just don't know. They're everywhere and all over, but they don't. But they want to fit in, and they want to be cool. And taking them from there to where they actually are making studied, informed decisions, and will be making about all of us as they get into society. I really enjoy helping and supporting students along that path.
That's something I find with our members. So our organization, we work with faculty at all the two-year colleges in Texas, and sometimes there is a little wariness about the work that's being done in Austin because it's happening at such a remove from the classroom.
You worry.
And they worry, that they really don't get the reality of my students or the pressures we're under. They don't know what questions to ask, and there's kind of a cultural divide between things happening at 30,000 feet and things happening in the classroom. And it seems like the more you knit those two cultures together, where we really are talking about the same things and respecting the insights that each has, that's seems like that's where we need to
I
get.
wish you were wrong about that, but I actually think you're right that we have to ground those perceptions in some real reality. And that's where this work that David does and that I do together is, I think, so valuable, because he talks about the value we can place on it, but we cannot make the right kinds of decisions without the important information that he provides us. So I like to tease him and give him a bad time about his love for numbers, but and it is weird.
I really geek out.
He does.
I do. I get really excited.
Hard
I
to
move-
explain that.
I move my arms around, and I
Yeah.
just really get excited.
This is all true.
And
This is-
Wanda's like, calm down.
Yeah.
You're getting
You
excited.
spoke at our summer leadership conference, and,
So you
and
know.
the enthusiasm was
Yeah.
it was palpable.
But it works. It
You
Yes.
have to get
yes.
people excited.
Yeah.
I can't just be monotone and
Yeah.
say
Yeah.
the numbers are this is what's happening. No, you have to get them engaged and
Well-
know that they're part of it.
And you don't want what you're working on to feel like the inside of a computer, which is what I think a lot of faculty think. You're looking at data, and it's so denuded of the reality of the life on a campus and in a classroom.
Right.
To really infuse that with that reality is
Absolutely.
And
it's
I
powerful.
appreciate that he can put that, he can display it or he can explain it in ways that really
Mm-hmm.
help me and help others recognize the impact that should make.
Mhm.
And so that's why this works, I believe.
Well, and it's exciting because I can translate it in that way, and then Wanda can go and run with it, and she can translate in a way that will be impactful for the campuses.
Well, and I mean, the Uri Treisman has a wonderful statement that the plural of anecdote is not data, and and that's true. And I think we can get caught up in our particular situation and think that's normal, that that's how everything is. So if you can have that lived reality and also check it against the data to say, does the data support conclusions we're drawing from this? Then you have something you can act on at a
Absolutely.
larger scale.
Yeah, because what will happen is when I first entered into my first job at UT, I started doing all these analyses, and there had been people there for 30 years, and I would go to the table and present things, and they're like, that can't be right.
Yeah.
I know from my gut this is what's telling me. I'm like,
Yeah.
but I'm telling you this is what's reality. So there's this gut reaction versus what's actually happening.
Yes, yeah. And if the gut reality tells you, okay, we need to look at the data and check it,
Yeah.
fine. But if the numbers are accurate and you're asking the right questions, you have to go with something that is counterintuitive.
Absolutely. So dual credit is a great segue into that. So I was approached by the Faculty Advisory Council. Faculty Advisory Council are two representatives from each of our campuses, both health and academic, that meet quarterly at System. I was asked to present on data. Just what do you do? And so I did, but then it led into this conversation about dual credit and about faculty's concerns that students are not being set up to be successful at our campuses by taking dual credit while they're in high school. And so that was the reason
weren't
why
succeeding, yes.
That's right. That's the whole reason why we did the study. And what we found is that it's sort of complete opposite of what they thought. Students are succeeding as they go into our institutions that are taking dual credit. And they are being prepared to be successful in subsequent courses.
So let's talk about that. First of all, when was the study done?
It's still being done.
We wish it was past tense.
So I'm in final draft mode. So what I'll be doing is submitting that to Wanda and others to vet it to make sure it's capturing the spirit of what we found and how it can be actionable on our campuses. So all the analyses, all the coding have been completed. So we started about last year collecting data, both quantitative and qualitative, and analyzing questions on participation rates, analyzing questions on student success, both short-term and long-term, and then getting the perspectives of students, of faculty, of advisors, and admissions. to really understand how they're responding to this whole movement of dual credit, because we've seen a huge increase from 2000 to present, about 650% increase.
It does seem like the whole state is trying to catch up with with the reality of dual credit in the
Now,
state.
this is UT system only.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
that's right,
yes,
that's right.
yeah.
But nonetheless, everybody is experiencing.
And what was the initial prompt for that? Was it that concern that it was just raised in a meeting? We're worried that our students aren't being well served.
I'd add a little bit of. There's been some interest from the chancellor in his quantum leaps on Texas Prospect Initiative that we need to kind of have this sort of much better relationships with high schools, community colleges, and universities. This kind of fit in that snugly into that
I see.
particular initiative too, because dual credit actually, in fact, covers all three: public school, high schools, and community colleges and universities. So it kind of fit into there as well, that we needed to understand it, and that if we were going to understand it better, we had to take it on as a research project. But there's no doubt the impetus came some from the faculty who are saying this isn't working.
So it sounds like we have two parallel things. There's the research that's being done, and there's a dual credit task force that, Wanda, you're co-chairing, that's acting on what you're finding, as well as other input that the council, that the task force is working on.
The rationale for the particular makeup of the dual credit task force just came from the fact that we felt like the players involved in the dual credit world ought to be at the table and talk about it. Each brought an interesting and important perspective about dual credit, whether you're a high school or a school superintendent or a high school teacher that teaches it, or whether you're the community colleges who are in fact responsible for granting the credit, or you're one of the institutions who are receiving it, along with the agencies and other organizations who are responsible for the conduct of all this. So the legislature was making all kinds of decisions about dual credit, including expanding its the ability to grant credit under dual credit pretty dramatically in the last legislative session, that we thought we need to understand how it's working at every level before it gets more expanded or it gets modified. So it was
And the legislature gave us a little room to work on that before they
Right.
make major changes.
And we communicated to them. We've
Yes.
got some people around the table who are going to attend to this. So that was the rationale by partnering with Texas Association of Community Colleges and the UT system. We were just interested. They were interested, and I was very, very grateful that they've been a partner in this. And I think the partnership has made this task force richer and better. And I've been really quite gratified at how engaged everybody at the task
they
force
jumped in
meetings.
with both feet, it seems.
They
Yeah.
did.
So who's on this council? I mean, I keep calling it council, on the task force.
Task force.
Who's on it, and how did you approach that?
Well, we tried to get it as heterogeneous as possible. So we have TEA and the coordinating board involved, because those are the two agencies that are most involved. And the
Texas Workforce
Texas
Commission.
Workforce, yes, is the third. So all of those agencies are involved. But then we have many of our community colleges are represented, some of the presidents or representatives from them. We have several higher education institutions are involved. The A&M system, the UT system, we have somebody from Tech, we have some independent folks. We have several high school superintendents and a couple of high school teachers who are involved in teaching dual credit. We have private institutions are represented. So what we tried to do, all of those players are involved in whether you're teaching it, granting the credit, accepting the credit, overseeing it, but you're all very, very much involved with how it works. So it was helping people helping people get together and put the issues on the table that everybody was talking about.
Yeah.
They were getting talked about
Yeah.
in every setting, at your
Yeah.
meetings, at
Yes.
ours. It was time to get the right players at the table and talk about it.
And you're dealing with everything. You're dealing with the funding of it. You're
Mhm.
dealing with the delivery modes of instruction. I mean,
Yes.
the whole. You're covering the waterfront.
Yes, and that was the way, we ended up with 40 people around the table, which...
It's a big table.
Yes, I thought it was a little bit too big a table. So we had to divide and conquer.
Yeah.
And so we developed 6 subgroups, and it covers all of those areas that, I mean, the group determined that were important. The interesting thing, you may have noticed when David and I spoke to your mid-managers group
Mhm.
a couple of months ago, that we started off asking them what the issues were that they perceived related to dual credit. And they articulated exactly the issues that the task force was dealing with it. And I'm not surprised by that. I was kind of gratified by it, that the task force had identified the right issues. But the fact is, we were all grappling with the issues of funding and program quality
Yeah.
and transferability and access. So those are all issues for all of us. So I
Mhm.
felt good that the TAC group articulated exactly what we had identified.
Yes, yes. David, I'd like to go back a little bit to talk about the research that you did within the UT system
Yes.
on dual credit. What were you looking for, and what did you find? You're dealing with issues of quality, numbers of students, numbers of credit hours. Tell us about that.
Sure. So I think the first question was trying to understand how many students are coming in with dual credit at a system level and also at a campus level.
Mhm.
Because if you'd ask any one person at one of our campuses, they wouldn't be able to really answer that question for you. And so that was the first attempt. So what we found is that 61% of all of our first-time in college students are coming in with some type of credit, whether that be dual credit, AP, or both. Or IB as well. So IB and AP are sort of hand in hand. And then the next question was, what are the short-term and long-term outcomes of those students who take dual credit? What happens when they actually show up? How are they performing on our campus? And short-term, we were looking at first-year retention, second-year retention. We were looking at GPA first year. We were looking at subsequent course completion. So those who complete Calculus 1 as dual credit, how did they perform in Calculus 2? And so we looked at their GPA. And then long-term, we were looking at long-term outcomes. We were looking at 4-, 5-, and 6-year graduation rates, and then also student debt. When you look at the studies that have been done in Texas or around the nation, no one really looks at whether or not it's saving them money, but that's the number one recruiting bullet point that they give students. It's going to save you money.
And that in the feedback you got from students, that was a big motivator.
Yeah, so...
And it's what legislators think.
Yes.
That's right. We did a series of focus groups across all our campuses. I ended up talking to more than 175 students, and the number one thing that they responded, I said, "Why are you taking dual credit? What's the hurry?" It's going to save me money. It's going to save me money, and then they say it's going to save me time. I can get those credits out of the way, so I can go straight to my major. And so what we found with the outcomes is that when you compare students from dual credit from those students that didn't bring any credit at all, students that are dual credit are 2 times more likely to be successful. We retained both first and second year. They're going to have a higher GPA their first year. They are more likely, they're 2 times more likely to graduate in 4 years, 5 years, and 6 years. One interesting caveat to that is when you look at the both categories, so students that both bring in both AP and dual credit, they're 10 times more likely to be retained their first year. So there's something going on with that relationship of taking college credit and taking an AP course that's setting these that are setting them up. It could be a proxy for motivation. I don't know that. That's one thing that I didn't measure is motivation levels.
It'd be hard to know for sure, but you could see how it would make them feel they're not starting from zero when they graduate from high school. They already have some credits.
Yep.
They've proven to themselves that they're capable of it.
Yep.
They're on a number of levels. It could be seen by
Yep.
the student as confirming this decision to go to college.
Yeah, so one thing that's interesting is, I forgot to mention this, but when we look at the participation rates by campus, 91% of students coming into UT Austin have some type of credit. And our lowest would probably be Permian Basin, which is at about 45%
Okay.
of their students come in. But the key with that, what we found with the qualitative study is that there is almost a gaming of weighting GPA.
Yeah.
And so in order to become top 6%, top 8%, whatever that metric is that year, it's required that you take either AP or dual credit so that you can get the ranking you need. And what we found is that some high schools rank or weight dual credit and AP differently based on their desired outcomes. So if they want more students to take dual credit, then potentially there's the weighting is heavier for dual credit than it is AP.
Okay, interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But the weighting is a real factor for students. They were very clear. I can't be top 10% if I don't have dual credit.
They won't be. They won't be.
They won't. So all the other motivations aside, the really high achieving students are going to take it.
Well, and that can be a challenge because whoever's making the decisions about weighting, and the decisions have to be made, are made in the absence of a lot of data to base what's the best outcome for students. We don't know yet.
And also, you have to remember in all of this, I'm always reminded that not all of these programs are available everywhere. There are schools that don't have AP.
That's right. So
You can't just pick from a whole array of classes.
You don't have the luxury. Yeah.
No.
So we did a heat map comparing AP credit versus dual credit, and what you find is that AP is all nested around large metropolitan areas,
Sure.
whereas rural is dominated by dual credit. There's more opportunity of access for dual credit, because there's community colleges throughout the state.
And the legislature required it, so yes.
That's right.
One of the things I learned from David's study that I think is really important is that the offering dual credit and encouraging students to take it has made a difference in the college-going culture. It never occurred to me that there'd be somebody who may not think about going to college and by taking a dual credit course would then become somebody who does think, who has the self-confidence now and all, and he can talk about the confidence that these dual credit courses create in students. But especially in the Rio Grande Valley, we have discovered some with early college high schools, a lot with early college high schools, and with dual credit, that it has helped with the college-going culture.
Yes.
And I am really gratified to learn that. I didn't realize that it was going to be that big an issue.
My daughters went to high school here in town and over at Westlake High School, and they did dual credit at Austin Community College. And both of them, they got in their car, they drove over to the Rio Grande campus, parked, found their way in, sat in a classroom full of college students, and it was the best thing that could have happened to them. It really confirmed to them that.
And just think, if you weren't sure.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
I mean, your daughters are probably a little more sure that they can make it. I don't know that, but some
really-
of these kids have not contemplated it.
It provides them a college identity,
Yes.
I think, and a toolkit to pull from. The fact that they actually know what a registrar is or a bursar, and that's meaningful to them. Oh,
I
a
wouldn't have known.
That's right. You have to go
That's right.
pay the cashier, really these small things. The other thing that we found through the focus groups is that I asked them, well, what did you really learn? You took 18 hours. What did you learn? Not once did they mention, I learned this physics calculation, or I learned this calculus, or they said, I learned time management, I learned how to read a syllabus, I learned that a deadline is a deadline from a faculty perspective, and they won't give you any kind of leeway. So it's these soft, competencies, this toolkit that they can lean on to be successful.
And those are often the things faculty say they wish their students knew. That if they learn that early,
That's right.
That yeah.
And they feel confident.
Yes.
But I want to go back to your session of, you mentioned your daughter drove to a campus. One thing that we highlight in the report is that it is the wild, wild west of dual credit, in the sense that it's offered in so many different ways and approaches. So some early college high schools are actually located on the parking lot or in the parking lot of a community college. Mm-hmm. Some are across the street. Some are, it varies. Some are online.
An interesting thing, this is before you've asked it, and I don't know if you want to know this, but in our dual credit task force meeting last week, the chair of the financing subgroup almost used that same analogy in terms of how the funding,
Mm-hmm.
that they are funded so differently,
Mm-hmm.
that in our report, one of the reasons people are confused is because it's confusing.
Mm-hmm.
Because the fact is that you may be my next door neighbor, but a child you're responsible for, you may be paying the whole freight. My child may be getting it free.
Yes. Yes.
That
right.
it all depends on what school,
That's right.
and the community colleges are granting this credit. But some higher ed institutions are. But the way it is funded and then the way it is paid for,
That's right.
we're looking at those two things separately, are all over the map.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's talk a little bit about the different ways of delivering dual credit. You can deliver it on a college campus where the high school students come to the campus. You can deliver it on a high school campus
Yep.
with a college faculty member going to the high school.
Yep.
You can offer it on a high school campus with an embedded high school teacher
Yep.
with the credentials teaching it.
Yes.
And you can teach it online.
Yes.
There may be others, that's all I can think of right now. Do you know the impact of those different modes?
No.
Okay.
So this is part of the report will also recommend that we start collecting data so that we can actually analyze those things.
Okay.
So there are concepts of early college high school.
Mm-hmm.
There is a traditional dual credit high school,
Mm-hmm.
or they offer dual credit within the high school. There's something called a school within a school, which is actually a division or a branch of a school that's deemed a dual credit high school. There's something called a middle college high school,
Mm-hmm.
which is typically a high school that's on a 4-year campus, online,
Yeah.
all the different ways that they.
Well, all I know at this point is anecdotes, but for instance, San Jacinto College has a campus across the street from LaPorte High School.
Mm-hmm.
And we spoke with some people over there, and the high school kids say they love walking across the street to do their dual credit, and they don't want to go back. They like that the feel of a college campus. They're treated. They stand up a little straighter. They're treated as an adult.
Well, and
even
I
as high
asked
school
students about that.
Yeah.
I said, what was the difference? And you know what they told me? They said, I'm tired of being taught towards a test, and that
Yeah.
college allows me time to think.
I can't believe, and this is my anecdote, but I can't believe that just as you described it, that doesn't matter, that you're on a university campus or a college campus. I can't believe it doesn't matter. But as we all know, every one of us around this table, is that the teacher matters. And the teacher is teaching a college level course. And to the extent that they do that and do that well and engage the students, it's going to be a better course. So, and what David can't discover from the data as we have it is where that teacher is. You know, so that's why the recommendation for further study, we don't know if that teacher's at the high school or at the college or at a university. We don't know, so
Well,
we're just doing it by anecdote, and we've already covered that that's not the good way.
Well,
to do
we
it.
did a survey this last spring of the coordinators of the dual credit programs around the state, and we asked, how are they delivered? Is it on the high school campus at the college, and who's teaching it? Is it adjunct or full-time or embedded? And it was interesting, the results we got. It is overwhelmingly on the high school campus.
Could you tell can you compare that to how successful the students are in
No,
subsequent cohorts?
we were trying to get just some baseline information about what's even happening.
That's right.
And there's a whole lot more we'd like to know, but first, just paint us a picture, what are we talking about?
That'll be helpful.
Yeah.
Because it's interesting, because we do have models where a student will go into a college class and they're just a college student.
Yeah.
A part of it. But then we also have a design there's designs where it's a cohort.
Mm-hmm.
So they all take the same classes.
Yes.
One thing that I'm concerned with is the movement of early college high schools and how rapidly they're increasing those.
I wanted to ask about that. What differences do you see between what we just a straight up dual credit offering versus an early college high school?
So the mission itself for an early college high school is for a student to walk across the stage and receive at the same time a high school diploma and an associate's degree.
Mm-hmm.
And so the reason I'm a little concerned with that because it's tracking them to an associate's degree and it's not tracking them towards a four-year degree. So the challenges that we're facing at the four-year campuses is that some of these electives are not matching up with a degree plan for a four-year campus.
Mm-hmm.
So electrical engineering, you're supposed to sprinkle your electives throughout your curriculum and not take all engineering. Well, if you've taken your 60 hours, your electives are already spent.
Mm-hmm.
So then you're going to have to either take more classes that are electives and pay more, or Take longer.
Stick around for more of our interview with David Troutman and Wanda Mercer. But first, let's find out about some upcoming events for our community college folks in Texas. On November 6th, 7th, and 8th, the Success Center will be hosting its third annual Pathways Institute in San Antonio. This program will give people at colleges that are implementing guided pathways an opportunity to work with their teams in focused programs, as well as connect with colleagues across the state and hear from researchers in the field. You can find out more on the TAC website at tacc.org. And be sure to make your plans to attend this year's TCCTA convention in Dallas. This is the largest gathering of community college folks in Texas, and there will be lots of programs covering more than 50 disciplines, as well as teaching hacks and time to meet up with friends across the state who share your passion for teaching. Visit tccta.org for all the program and travel information. Now, let's get back to the conversation.
And I think with this last session where they've modified the core curriculum, so they're requiring traditional high schools that offer dual credit, they can only provide 42 hours. And that's different than 2015 where it sort of opened the box.
Yeah.
But if you look at the legislation, it's basically saying for traditional high schools you're limited at 42, but early college high schools are exempt. So my fear is that there's going to be an onslaught of early college high schools, so people are going to change their names and their missions. And we found that in the Valley. So there's one ISD that 100% of their high schools are early college high schools. So a student has no option but to take college credit.
And they're trying to promote a college-going culture.
Yes.
I don't want to indict them, but that's just a different. I'm not certain that that's what the legislative intent was, and what David's priority told you. We don't know what's happening since we've opened it up to freshmen and sophomores.
That's right.
Our research isn't going to show that because they haven't gotten far enough along.
Right.
And that's a big deal.
Is there a sweet spot you're finding in the number of? I know we talked about this early on, but you kind of you could see how there might be. Here's the optimal number of dual credits that if you can accumulate them before you graduate from high school, it's really going to help. Is there such a thing as too much or too few?
I think that's a really hard question to answer. I think that if all students were the same, then I would find you a sweet spot. Oh, it's going to be 18 hours. That's it. Go forth.
Okay.
No, what happens is what we're finding is that there are hundreds and hundreds of students, or actually thousands and thousands of students within our data set where they're taking dual credit. So we have students that have less than 1,000 on their SAT, but are coming in with 60 hours of college credit. We have students that have 1,500 on their SAT out of 1,600 coming in with 30 hours of college credit. So there's variations. So it's very hard to determine the number. What we do know is that any exposure is better than no exposure.
Do you find any advantages to the early college high school model as far as the intentionality of how the program is delivered, the wraparound services those students receive?
I didn't find any statistical differences between early college high schools and traditional high schools with providing
Dual
credit to success.
But we we didn't have that many early college, high school, right?
So we have, I mean, there are, I think there are 176 in the state of Texas, I think. So it's not an onslaught of the thousands and
Yeah.
thousands of high schools are
Mhm.
out there.
Mhm.
I think over time, we just need to be more thoughtful.
Yeah.
One thing that I was really impressed, so we visited all our campuses. We went out to UTEP, so the El Paso area. El Paso is unique because its own ecosystem, because they're
Right.
out there and there's
Right.
one community college with one four-year college.
Yeah, they all talk and work things out.
Well, they all talk.
I think
they
5
all-
ISDs. Yeah.
Yes.
So what's interesting that they do is they have their collaborative they've had for 25 years,
Mhm.
where they've actually built an infrastructure so that college advisor, meets once a semester with high school counselors to counsel students for dual credit,
Mhm.
to try to understand that pathway or those guided pathways towards a 4-year degree. And their articulation agreements are spot on. So everything you're taking at a community college is going to apply to it.
Yeah.
99% of it will apply to
And
it.
have they been able to sort out some of those issues, like with the engineering example, with taking all the credits? That may be too specific.
I think that's a little. I didn't ask that question.
Uh-huh.
I just know that they are 100% in aligned with each other, and they're
Mhm.
all supporting dual credit. Whereas other campuses, I can't say that.
Mhm. Okay.
I will tell you as a little prelude to what I think is going to come out of the task force in I'm certainly in one or two of the groups, and this will be no shocker to anybody, is that the successful programs, as David is pointing out in El Paso, are going to be the ones where the community colleges are not going out and hiring credentialed faculty and leaving them on their own. The successful ones are the ones where there's great articulation between the upper level faculty, the community college faculty, and if it's being taught at the high school, in the high school. Those are the ones, shocker, that are being successful, that are both on curricular things, on the issue of sequencing. If we would just do that, I think we'd be doing our students a terrific service. And so I know that part of our recommendations are going to be beyond articulation agreements that many of us already have, but those are a paper agreement and all. But way down embedded in these are real people
Yeah.
and we have got to better communicate among those folks who are impacting those students' lives as they proceed through these.
I know in El Paso they get the faculty at the community college talking with the high school teachers. You've got there's a lot of coordination that goes on. And that really does seem to be the big difference maker.
We had a faculty member from UTSA at our meeting last week who talked about it's one of her initiatives, and she was just ecstatic about what a difference it was making. So I know that's got to come out of some of the recommendations.
So how is the task force using the work of that David's doing and other research you're finding? I know the
Yes.
coordinating board is working with the RAND Corporation
Sure.
on a study. How are you kind of weaving that intelligence into the work of the
What
task
we've
force?
tried to do is to expose the task force to these various research initiatives. We had the coordinating board, their RAND, and then their second part of theirs that AIR is doing. We've been talking about that. David has spoken about his research almost at every meeting,
Yep.
made a major presentation at one meeting, but continues to speak about it.
Mhm.
And hopefully we will continue to funnel as his reports get done to those. But I think a lot of the task force member has a grasp of some of the things he's talked about that he's mentioned here. But there's other research studies too, and we have tried to funnel that to the group. We have been pretty clear that the key findings we've asked that each of the working groups develop need to be data-driven.
Mhm.
We're really not interested in what you think. We're interested in what you know, what you can demonstrate. And part of that's born out of this we all have come into it with our biases.
Mhm.
And so I need to be forced to look at the data, to be forced to look at what the statistics are telling us. And certainly that's informed by your experience, but we had to be very careful that anecdotal experiences weren't driving the recommendations.
And I think one thing I was excited about, because I participate on the subgroup of the access and quality, or no, I'm sorry,
Access.
access and equity. I was concerned when we started this that everyone would have their own agendas, and we would sort of be having a debate versus creating something informative. But honestly, it's been such a pleasure to work on. I really get a sense that everyone is there for the students. We want what's best for students, putting everything aside, and then Wanda and others just setting that tone of we have to present it in a data-formed way, and that really has helped facilitate conversation.
And there's a group dealing with quality issues, which is the one I'm on, and that's an interesting discussion that's coming out of that. And it's I found it the same thing. It's very candid. Everybody's really being very honest, and I don't see people trying to defend their turf. They
That's
just
right.
really want
It's
to.
been very gratifying.
Yeah.
People really care about trying to move this forward.
So what surprised you? I mean, as you've been doing this, you've been talking with people from so many different perspectives. Are there pieces of this that that you didn't expect to see, or that?
I will say the uniform interest in quality was gratifying. I'm not sure it surprised. Well, maybe a little bit. Everybody's uniformly interested in quality, but I was surprised at, especially at I mentioned the funding, of how it is just. It's almost like every district has a different way of doing it.
Yeah.
That surprised me. And I wasn't really well informed about the whole dual credit sphere. I've learned a great deal, but I have been surprised at how it's just not similar in the way it is funded and supported and what families have to support. There's just not as many similarities as I would have thought.
Well, to me, that's one of the absolute crucial pieces we have to figure out, because you can design a system that creates all kinds of consequences you didn't intend based on the funding.
And I think that's maybe what the legislature has done a little bit, is that with all the best of intentions, support this, we put money behind it when you consider we fund the community colleges, we fund the high schools, we've said you can take it and all this, but I think they'll be surprised to learn that it has perhaps developed into a system that they didn't intend.
Yeah, and I think also thinking about the relationships between the ISDs and the community colleges, and because those relationships and the terms that they come to in their MOUs need to be based on things like quality, the things that we all want, and not have a race to the bottom where it's cheap and all the students get A's.
Because you worry about that just being a way of expanding.
And you wind up with something that nobody wanted,
Right.
but it became impossible to resist.
Yes,
you know.
the expanding course offerings.
Yes.
We do fund by,
Yeah.
so, and there's probably been some of that, but.
But I think also extending our conversation about whether or not students are ready to go into their major at 18 years old. Do they actually know what they want to do? Are we allowing them enough
That's
time to think through what they want to pursue? Because we know with other types of research, you typically, on average, I think the American changes their career 2 to 3 times in their lifetime. So are we ready for them to make a career move at the age of 18?
And that, I'm glad you brought that up, because that is at the core of the transferability issue, which is one of our subgroups, and that the word got bandied around in the legislature so much, is that this isn't transferring. It's not, these students are not getting credit. Well, if you know a major, you're committed to it, and you stick to that, everything will transfer. But those never align.
That's right.
Students don't know.
When I was in high school, I wanted to be a CPA. I thought, I want to be an accountant. This is what I want to do.
Yeah.
But then I thought, this is boring. No offense to accountants out there, but
Well, and
but
that's
they
what,
don't know.
and that's what I mean, that this is a big thing that in the conversations we've been having in this series that comes up every time, that if you have a student at 18 that makes a decision, and we want students to make a decision before they accumulate 15 hours of college credit, including dual credit, is that realistic? Did any of us do that?
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
And when 61% are coming in with dual credit already,
Yeah.
so you're asking them to do that at 17. If you want everything to transfer and apply, because everybody's talking about degree paths. Everybody wants us to have degree paths. And at 18, is that realistic?
Well,
I'm not sure it's realistic.
And there is this thing I hear about called exploratory majors, where you start out in a sort of a broad
Cluster,
meta major
yeah.
a cluster, and from that you then discern a major, which would give you the chance to have a class with that professor that really gets you excited about accounting or convinces you that's not what you want to do. But you couldn't have known until you took that class.
That's
The
right.
trouble is, if you're making a decision before you've finished 15 hours, you better have that professor your first semester, because that was your chance.
So that is the flaw in this, in the transferability, is the the unlikelihood of people from 16 to 20 having identified with certainty what they want to do.
Yeah.
So you've got the issues of the kinds of that faculty want, that they want them to have certain courses and certain prerequisites that the student may not get. Therefore, they will take classes that then don't apply towards their degree. Interestingly, in my discussions with students, David's had much more, they don't seem to care as much. Now, parents, yes, and our legislators, yes, and are all about, we've funded this, they've paid for it, that should all apply. The students are kind of, but it was great. It helped me, at least at some level. But certainly it's hard to accumulate 30, 40, 50 hours that you're going to have to retake. So that is the issue right now.
Well, and that, it's a matter of proportion, I think.
Yes.
I mean, the most interesting questions are the ones that have multiple considerations to factor. If there's
Yeah.
only one mistake we can make, those are kind of the easy problems that we aren't even aware of because we just take care of them. But you've got two here, many, but two close ones. That one is the credits don't transfer, and that can be frustrating and time-consuming and expensive. So, and if that number gets to be too great, then we do lose a lot of students. And there is a lot of data to show the number of students who take credits beyond what they needed for the major, that we do lose a lot of students on that basis. But then that's not the only consideration. And so the ditch on the other side of the road is that, well, they made a decision when they were a junior in high school because they had all these credits, and it can be very difficult to change their mind. So how do y'all balance that? How do you look at it and say, yes, these are both valid concerns? How do we build a system that has enough flex built into it that it can respond to both?
I think that's to be determined.
Or have I just? I mean, if we could solve this right now, then
That's right. I think the key is empowering students with the right information, understanding the difference between technical credit versus academic credit, understanding that your credit will transfer, but it won't transfer to your degree plan. So there are different ways to think about that, and really trying to inform. Maybe, and so this is one approach we've worked with, with the student information is, maybe it's great to take credit, but don't take that many credit hours. Get an exposure to it, but you don't have to take 60. 10% of our freshmen, our first time in college students, are coming in with some type, like almost 60 hours of credit. That's blows my mind.
Do you know how they do? I mean, what the outcomes are for them?
Yeah, so they're graduating They're graduating about 2 semesters faster than other students. It's helping them graduate because of that amount of hours, and it's beneficial for the retention. So it's helping them, right? So it depends on, whether or not you want them to have a full college experience, or do you just want them to get as fast as you can. And that's a philosophical question.
The other thing I think we're going to have to do better, and I think this will probably come out of the task force work too, is to have very straightforward and frank conversations with students and their families up front to let them know the issues, because we can't exactly resolve the decision-making of the 18-year-old about their degree program. But you can help them to understand the impacts one way or another on all kinds of points related to dual credit. That if you get 60 hours, please know that when you get to the university, that you may end up having some fairly intense semesters of this. Or if you decide to do this and you decide you want to be pre-med, that there may be some other courses that you have to take that have the appropriate science or math embedded in them that your classes did not. What I don't think happens is that we're as clear as we can be with families up front about the impact of those decisions, and then letting them make those decisions with as much knowledge as they can.
Are some of those problems things that could be addressed, say, among the faculty at the community college and the university on that transfer question of what is going to go in a course? We're going to sequence our courses this way. We're going to include this in this course versus that one.
Certainly, if that communication that I talked about earlier that happens between the university and the community college is good, you can at least make those classes as robust or as expansive as possible to apply.
Well, I'm thinking in terms of the content of a course. I mean, if could it be solved at the program level or the department level?
Some of it.
Some of it.
I think some of it could. And, there's, pardon me, there's no doubt that there are faculty who really are set that you really need to take the prerequisite I teach. I mean, we all have some of that going on. We're trying to mitigate that a little bit. But yes, to articulate clearly about program content would be good.
What I'm hoping from this task force, from the study as well, is for programs to look internally, to do program evaluation, really to do improvements. What did you learn? What did your students benefit from this? And what did they not benefit? And then modifying your program so that it's more meaningful. Because I think everyone should have the opportunity to, if they're college ready, to take college courses in high school, they should do it. But it should be impactful.
And looking at it from the student's point of view and what kind of the quality of the experience they had, if we made this only about, say, the legislature's concern about cutting the cost to the state,
Exactly.
that we could get very, very efficient, but it would be kind of brutal on the student.
Or I could offer more. We get better enrollment.
Yes, yeah, you could make it so you kind of key in what the objective is, and then you create a system around it. But if you make it about the authentic experience the student is having, how do we build a system that really maximizes this time in their life to get the most out of it?
Remembering that many of them don't even know.
Yeah.
So you have to start from square one. The students, the families that do know, their parents are there sitting at the table anyway. So it's that extra time you have to take to help a family understand the nuances of this.
Oh, and a lot of this is an advising piece, it sounds like.
Yes,
I mean, that's,
absolutely.
Did you study that at all, the impact? Are there specific things within an advising program that really seem to help?
So we interviewed advising groups from each of our campuses to understand how dual credit might be impacting their jobs and how they're responding to students. And what we've heard, one of the major themes is that when you're coming in with a lot of hours, it's actually tying their hands behind their back and they can't really do their job effectively because there's nothing they can advise them about. Well, you've taken all your collectives, you've taken all the things. I guess you're ready for your major, or you've passed Calculus 1, but your SAT score might not be the greatest. Maybe you should retake it, but sometimes they can't. They don't have the luxury to advise their students to do that. So I think they feel, and this is interpretation of everybody participating in focus group, I think they're frustrated because they don't have their voices heard early on. And so that's why I was so excited to hear UTEP's approach with having that voice heard with high school
Getting
counselors.
in early in that conversation.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
They've built that bridge, and I think this it goes back to the Texas Prospect Initiative as a quantum leap and building that bridge of connection between 4-year, 2-year, and high schools to have that fluid migration pattern.
So what's next for the task force? They've been having their meetings
Yes.
and getting close, it sounds like, to some key insights as to how to go forward. What are you saying?
We've established for ourselves an mid-October deadline to try to have a draft of each working group. We have 6 working groups to have a draft report that the whole task force will review near the end of October. So we are getting close, and the hope is maybe in November to be ready to have a final draft. That's perhaps a little bit ambitious, but I hope not overly. So I sure would like to have it done by the end of the year.
And then, so when you have something ready, what do we do with that? I know the legislature's expecting, they gave us a little time to work, but next session, we need to be ready to step up.
And that's why we want to have it done early enough
To get it out
that
there.
you can get it out. So, the coordinating board and TEA have some goals that they're supposed to, by legislative mandate, to be determining. So we think it will inform their work. We certainly plan to share it with key legislators. We hope it informs the work of our own system, and some of the academics. Some have already said, I want to start doing this or that. So it will actually help specific and individual academic programs and all, but certainly our key audiences are the legislature, TEA, and the coordinating board as they work also on these issues. They need it needs to be that the priorities that they set, that the work as they go forward is informed by this user group. We feel very strongly that this group understands and has the best interests of students at heart, and the impact of that, their voices need to be heard.
So the report comes out, and if you're a faculty member at a community college in Texas, where would you be able to engage in this? I know our organization will be sharing the report with our members, so it will be reaching a lot of people that way.
We're only hoping people read it.
Oh,
So
I'm sure they will, but
yeah, we plan to get it out there. It'll be
Yeah.
on I expect it'll be on TAC's website and on the system's website, but I expect that we will also be transmitting it to all kinds of professional organizations.
Okay, terrific. Well, we'll be looking for that and letting our folks know about it and let you know what feedback we get on it. So,
Great.
but I appreciate the work that you've done on it. It's been a very thoughtful approach, and you really do seem to want to get all the information to make a good decision. So
hope
we
so.
have
Thank
fewer unintended consequences at the end.
Yeah.
So.
Thanks.
Well, thank you so much for being with us. This is a wonderful discussion. There is one last thing that I've been asking folks in these discussions about books that they've read that they might recommend, and we're asking people, is there something that you would, and it can be related to your work, something that you've done that's been informative, or just a novel that you've read that you think people would, everyone needs to read.
The last book I read and I thoroughly enjoyed was Al Franken's Giant of the Senate.
All right.
Because he's speaking this next week at the Texas Tribune Festival. And I'm not going to get to go because I have the students here this weekend, but my husband's going. So we bought the book and read it. It was just a hoot.
Okay.
Now that's, I'm not even sure we put that out there because it's kind of partisan. Kind of.
Yeah, but I think he was talking about his journey
It's
as a senator.
interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not dry. It is interesting how he came to to make the decision to run for the Senate and what he's learned about it. Was very interesting, partisanship aside.
Okay. All right.
That's the last book I read, so that's the first thing I thought. I just finished.
No, I really don't have time to read in like fun reads. I read research articles. I read. The last book I read was, you're gonna totally hit me, Wanda. Numbers to Words.
Oh God! Oh God!
It's really good.
Don't
It's
do
really,
that.
Who wrote that?
Oh my gosh, I'd have to. I don't recall.
Numbers
But,
to Words.
Yeah, it's really it's having really advanced statistics and really breaking it down for people, and really making it meaningful.
And the relevance of statistics to people's lives.
Yeah. So I can get you the author.
The most impactful book I've read this year, Atul Gawandre, is that his name?
Yes.
On Being Mortal,
Yes.
was the most impactful book I've read this year. It, I think everybody ought to read it. And I actually was so audacious as to tell our Vice Chancellor for Health Affairs that every one of our physician medical students should read it.
That's a wonderful book.
It is. It's just an excellent book.
Rethinking the way we approach end-of-life questions.
Right.
And, yeah.
Really, it's approaching our way of living
Mhm.
and then our way of dying. I thought it was
That's
an
interesting.
outstanding book.
Beautiful. Well, we will put links on the website to all three of these books.
Okay.
And
I'm not going to read your book.
No, you don't want to.
it sounds interesting.
It's nice.
He knows I won't.
I know. That's fine.
I respect your choice in books.
Yes, I do too. I do respect it. And I respect the work he does immensely. I'm so glad he does it.
Well, we will be posting this in a few weeks on the website, and we sure appreciate your time being
I
with
just
us.
Great.
hope it's
This is
halfway
Thank
helpful.
you. I know.
This is a lot of fun.
Great. Thank you.
That was Wanda Mercer and David Troutman. You can find links to many of the resources we discussed on our website at tccta.org/podcast. You've been listening to The Pathfinder. Be sure to join us next week when we speak with Jenna Cullinane-Hagee, Deputy Assistant Commissioner at the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board. We'll be talking about the 60 by 30 higher education agenda in Texas and what it's going to take to meet some ambitious goals. If you like this show, tell a friend, subscribe, leave us a review in Apple Podcasts. Share one of our episodes on social media. You can visit tccta.org to listen to our shows or grab them in your favorite podcatcher or wherever you found this one. The creator of The Pathfinder is me, Richard Moore. Our producers are Carol Hawkins and Gabriel Zambrano. This has been a production of the Texas Success Center and the Texas Community College Teachers Association. We'll catch you next time on The Pathfinder.